No money, no credit, no prospects, no future. But if I pick up a gun and I rob a 7-Eleven, now I have respect. People know who I am. That's the dream.
So when did you become a Satanist?
So,
Death threats
over
converting to Catholicism.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's because to see Mary was like that times a million. And what it felt like was my mother was a very tough lady.
Shayne Smith, welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Thank
I'm very
you.
happy to be here.
I'm so glad you're here, and you brought something really special.
I did. I've received 2 gifts that are just genuinely priceless, and this is one of them. It's incredible. I say it's a gift, but I feel like I should be compelled to give it to someone in their time of need at that point that it reaches me, I'll know it when it happens. But a friend of mine who's a Capuchin monk gifted me a piece of the true cross. So just incredible. And then a friend of mine also gifted me a first-class relic of Thomas Aquinas.
Wow.
So those 2 things, just incredible.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Well, we have it right here on the
Yeah.
table, and it's going to accompany us in our conversation.
I'm excited for it.
Which is so crazy. This is also, I just got this. This is 5 first-class relics.
That's
so
incredible.
I'll talk about it. Monsignor Rossetti just gave it to me. So I'll talk about that another time. But we've got the Holy Cross here, and we've got Shayne Smith here. So we're going to have a great conversation.
I know. I feel like the table's buzzing right now.
Come Holy Spirit. My gosh.
Right.
When he gave you the relic of the true cross, did he say anything about how the Capuchins got this? Like, it's 2,000 years, obviously.
Yeah. So I think he received it from a sister who was the sisters at the Cabrini Shrine were moving or something, and they had different relics, and they give them to him for safekeeping. And so he collects all these relics and stuff and organizes them and everything. And that one was done by a very particular Dominican whose name is escaping me right now. But that Dominican did everything and then sealed it, and he got it, and he was just waiting for, the right time or whatever. And apparently I'm the lucky one who gets to have it for now.
Amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. It's crazy to go from my secular life to a life now where something is truly priceless to me. That's a concept that is hard to grasp unless it's happening to you. You know what I mean? Like the idea that an object could be priceless. But it's beautiful. I'm very excited about it.
It's because of whose it is, right?
Yeah.
It's from our Lord, which is
just incredible.
Wild.
Yeah. Yeah.
So wild. You and I were just talking before we sat down. Mm-hmm. You've had a crazy week. It has been a crazy week.
Yes.
We're filming this on a Monday.
Yeah.
And it's Monday the 15th. And I might just start crying.
I'll cry too. It's all good.
How are you doing?
It's just a rough week. It's a crazy week. I'm all right, but it's just like just absorbing so much hate. It would be one thing to just witness it, but the fact that it was like the hate was doled out so completely and totally to all of us everywhere, just on display for you to watch, just was like it's heartbreaking, honestly. So I've been dealing with Charlie passed away. And that was devastating, and we were all horrified by that. And then people began to celebrate in the thousands, and that was even more horrifying. And then they began to harass vigils, destroy things, and then if you're a person online who spoke out about it, you got a lot of messages and stuff. And then I ended up getting threats to my family, threats to my work, and then of course the most vile messages you could ever imagine. And then my father passed away, and I posted about it kind of just to be transparent and people can give me some grace and understand and then of course those same people use that against you immediately, and you're like, oof, evil is real. So I guess we're just having a week where we're sort of seeing, oh yeah, that's right, evil is a real thing in the world that's around. It always feels like you read it abstractly in stories, or you read about like something happening somewhere far away or in the past, and you're like, that's so horrific. But to experience it, you know, in person, even from people who you may or may not have been acquaintances with, or it's just been wild. It really feels like something changed, right? And then, I mean, on the positive side, I've seen so many people choose radical love and empathy and compassion. And so many people sending me messages like, what do I do to go to mass for the first time?
It's amazing.
Like a lot.
It's amazing.
So for every hate message, there's someone just saying like, hey, what do I do in church? You know?
Wow.
And
Today is the feast day of Our Lady of Sorrows. And one of the readings, I thought this was very much speaking to what you're talking about, which is seeing this incredible response in the last week to Charlie's murder and how people responded. And it says, Jesus' father and mother were amazed at what was said about him, and Simeon blessed them, and to his mother and to Mary his mother, behold this child. This is after this is the prophecy of Simeon in the gospel. And this is, you know, to Mary, the mother of Jesus. Behold, this child is destined for the fall and the rise of many in Israel, and to be a sign that will be contradicted, and you yourself a sword will pierce, so that the thoughts of many hearts may be revealed. And I just think witnessing God working, including in the horrific death of Charlie, and seeing how people respond to that, it's revealing the hearts of so many people.
It really is. That's really, wow, poignant. Yeah, it's incredible to see, like, I feel like there's a lot of obfuscation usually, especially in our like secular culture. There's a lot of uncertainty. And right now, for all the negativity, I will say the one positive is there's a massive amount of certainty. You know, I know exactly what evil looks like and exactly what good looks like right now. And I'm seeing both in their extreme. And I guess we should be so thankful that, you know, love in our Lord is moving in such big ways in order to match the evil.
Yes.
You know, it's that part of your human mind that is yearns for like justice, that is frustrated. But I feel like the reality is that so much love is coming out of this that I probably shouldn't worry too much, huh? I should just lock in and love people as best as I can and be as Christ-like as possible and let it ride, you know? But it's just, what a crazy week.
And I'm so sorry for the loss of your dad.
Yeah, it's tough, but luckily my dad was a very, very brave and like self-aware man. So he knew he was passing away and he was ready for it. And so, he died well. So
wow,
I'm proud of him and I love him. And, you know, I'll be talking to him until I meet up with him next. So yeah.
Did he die with faith?
He did not, but he died. He never really got the chance. And we talked briefly about it. And right before he died, we were speaking and he was talking about certain trials I was undergoing because of my conversion. And my dad had never really been a person of faith. He was always like a sort of like whatever, like he was, what do I want to say? Ambivalent.
Live and let live.
Yeah, totally. So he didn't really go to church, but he was also like very supportive of anyone who wanted to go. Very like, you know, the classic liberal American sort of like, we're all in a plural society. Let's do what we want. And so, but there was a point when he was sick recently before he passed away where we were speaking to some family friends and he was talking about my trials as a Catholic. And he did it in sort of a proud way, in a way that like, I'm like, oh, were you watching my podcast? Were you watching my things? Were you, you know, thinking or believing or talking to God? And I feel like something was going on there. So I don't know. I just, all we can do is pray. And my dad was a loving, beautiful person. And he just grew up in a world where he sort of never received the gospel, you know? And then by the time I received the gospel, it was a little too late for me to sort of get him in on that in a way that felt like natural, you know, because when your father's dying, there's a part of you that's like, I got to do everything I can. But then there's also that part of you that's like, am I going to waste these last couple weeks frustrating or making uncomfortable or maybe seeming not selfish, but there's that like, am I trying to help my dad in a way that makes sense, or am I trying to help my dad in a way that is for my own sake, you know? And I guess I'll struggle with that, thinking about how that went or could have gone. But I don't know, my dad was a very loving person, and I think near the end of his life, he was much more open to Christ and God. And I just have this strange feeling from that conversation we had where he was sort of defending my Catholicism in a way that I never in a million years would expect that to happen, you know? So, yeah, that's
Sounds
really,
like he was open to it.
Yeah.
In a beautiful way, in a quiet way.
Yeah. I think, and it also at the end of his life too, I think he really became more open to these things. So
we'll pray for his soul.
Yeah. Thank you. And anyone watching, please, Stephen Patrick Smith.
Stephen.
Yeah. Give him a prayer, please.
Okay. I mean, your story is crazy, Shayne.
Yeah.
And everything you're saying and have said even the last few minutes connects back to even the vitriol you received.
Yeah.
Because of your conversion, your father's passing, the death of Charlie Kirk, and that you, in your world, has been you've experienced. It's connected back to who Shayne was before Jesus Christ and who Shayne is now. And I think that story is incredible, and I'm excited for you to share it on this show.
Yeah. I'm excited to share it.
You're also hilarious because you're a comedian, so we're going to laugh, guys. But the story is also insane. So where do we start here?
I don't even know. I mean, we can start at the very beginning.
The beginning is always a good place.
Yeah. So I grew up in like a crazy place. I grew up in the middle of nowhere, Utah. And, my mom married someone who wasn't too great. And that, of course, affected our family in a lot of ways. And so she had to shoulder the burden of basically being a father and a provider and a mother while enduring abuse and all sorts of other horrible things. And then, of course, those things affected me and my brothers. And so...
How many kids?
So there was four of us, me and three brothers. And so I have more brothers and sisters than that, but that was our little unit. And so we're very poor, trailer trash people. Like me and my brothers would share a bed sometimes, like that type of poor. Like one of us is going to take the bottom of the queen bed while the other three sleep, vertically or whatever. So it was tough, but it's funny, since my conversion, looking back on my childhood, it's like all positive. I don't know. I think when I converted, over time, I began to like really think about the people in my life and the things I'd experienced. And when I would think back to my stepfather, I would find myself wanting to forgive him. And I've forgiven everyone in my life. And that's just like turned my childhood from this horrible negative experience that I used to lament on podcasts and talk about in comedy and whatever, to this like really beautiful thing that I love. And like, I just hold on to all those positive memories and those things that made me who I am now. I don't know. Really, it's funny that Christ healed me before. Like, time and space aren't a problem for him, And it just feels crazy I don't even know how to explain it, for him to affect me in the past. It almost feels like looking back on me as a child, when I think back to some of these really horrible experiences, I have this weird comfort, like God is with me and I'm okay. And like, because I used to get triggered in the way that like goofy liberals online talk about it, It's a real thing. I shouldn't be so dismissive of it. But, people experience severe trauma and then they get triggered when certain things happen and it affects them negatively or gives them anxiety. And of course, people overdo it nowadays talking about that. But I used to have that, where I would see certain things or think certain things and I would have like anxiety attacks, or I would just become like world-endingly depressed. It would be horrific. I would feel alone and awful and miserable and all that has been healed.
Can you give an example of that? Just
Yeah.
for folks, what you're willing or comfortable sharing, like things that happened to you in your childhood that were so devastating that maybe would trigger you later on when you would be rush up against that memory versus now how that memory has been changed post conversion.
Yeah. So like, this is I'm trying to think of one that's like not too so awful that people are like, oh, I gotta pause the podcast. So it's terrible. But like my stepfather would, if me and my brothers would argue, he would make us fight each other. And so I have memories of like being forced to fight each other. And if we did not fight each other hard enough, he would just beat us both. And so we would like sort of gamify and be like, you'd be like, just punch me in the face, you know? And that's a horrific thing for like a 12-year-old to be like, just beat me, you know, like so that we can get out of this situation. And then looking back on that, I just have so much love for my brother being in that situation. And it's so like, you know, just the idea that my brother is so young would like offer to take a beating for me or vice versa. Like, you know, just the idea that we're arguing over like which one of us is going to be the one to take the more punishment or whatever. It's a horrific thing to imagine, but looking back on it, I just have love for my brother, you know? And I also, as crazy as it is, my stepfather, you know, he grew up in a different time, in a different place. You know, he experienced an incredible amount of violence over the course of his life. He had substance abuse problems. And I think that in a weird, twisted way, he really wasn't trying to torture us. He thought he was like making us into men or doing something to help us. Like, I don't think it was just to be cruel now that I look back on it, despite the fact that it was in fact very cruel. And so, you know, to see like, even just see like the UFC sometimes back in the day before, you know, I would just suddenly have these flashbacks to beatings or whatever. And so that would be one example of something that just looking back on, I'm just like so thankful for my brothers and the love of my family, you know? And so that would be one. But so I grew up like that. And of course that makes you angry at God. And so I definitely became a person who was actively trying to be mad at God, you know? And then I grew up around a lot of LDS people. And so I'm in Utah. And so Mormons, for those of you who don't know, an LDS person is a Latter-day Saint, but so they're Mormons, whatever you want to call it. But and they would often, you know, try to talk to me about Jesus or whatever, and I would just, you know, be so mad about it. I remember being a very young man, like 14, and we have these things called the lava flows. Where I'm from, it's these giant mile-long rivers of lava rock, and they're very tall. And you can go explore them, but at night, if you get caught in them at night, they're pitch black, and they're like razor sharp, and there's caves, and people die by like falling. And I remember getting stuck in there at night and trying to get out by myself and purposefully being like, don't ask God for help. Like, no, I don't need you. You've never been there for me. I'm going to figure this out myself. Like, that's how bitter I was, even as like a very young man, you know? And I just think like when you're living in a house full of violence, and then I was a young person who then began to do drugs and was drinking and involved in crime, and, you know, sin darkens your intellect. Sin begets sin. The more you do things, the more you're going to do things. And it just really hurt my ability to rationalize God or even think clearly about any of that stuff in any way. So I was an atheist, and not just an atheist, but an atheist who like, I need to read the books. I need to have the argument. I need to be able to like lash out, you know? And then I experienced a lot of different things in life, and I got to a point where I began to get really interested in politics. And
I have one more question, if it's okay, before we get to the politics. Just on the childhood front, it was your stepdad who was
my stepfather,
mostly raising you guys, and he was abusive.
My biological father lived in California, and I lived in Utah. So the times I would get to see my biological father, who recently passed away, were few and far between. Though those experiences affected me like so deeply. He was in a loving, committed marriage where he treated his wife incredibly well in front of us. Lots of memories of him making her laugh, which is like so beautiful and good. And then my stepbrother and sister and my half sister, who he all had, he treated them so well and was such a good father, that the times I got to be with them and experience that really kind of saved me and gave me like a small anchor into reality, you know, so as not to become like the most degenerate, insane person possible. And even at my most secular, even at my most like anything goes, do whatever you want, I'm a Satanist or whatever, I was an advocate for marriage, and it was 100% because of my father's marriage and watching how it played out and how sweet and loving they were and how much they accomplished together. You know, that was just something that I didn't see or experience as a kid at all. So to see that marriage like that, you know, with my father, someone I looked up to, was so important.
Do you think he knew that you were being so abused?
No. So I hid it from him because if he found out, he would take me away. And I couldn't leave my little brother and my mom with my stepdad. And then my little brother didn't tell his biological dad because, again, he would get taken away from my mom and me. So 2 of my older brothers eventually left with my brother's dad. And so me and my little brother were then at that point just left alone with my stepfather and my mom.
And was that some of the worst of the abuse?
Yeah. So it was pretty bad. But, you know, I ended up just running away a lot. So I would just be gone. I would just live at friends' houses, or I would stay the night at people's houses every night and try to like, they wouldn't realize that I was homeless, you know, or I would like walk around, like it would be winter. So I can't just go sleep outside. In the summer, I would camp a lot, but I'm from a really cold place. So I would just walk all night so I wouldn't freeze to death. And then in the morning, I would just go to a friend's house and be like, hey, do you want breakfast? Like, let's eat. And I would eat breakfast with his family. And they wouldn't realize that I'm like, not just bored or coming to hang out, but that I'm trying to eat because I'm hungry and cold, you know? And so I hid it from everybody. We both did. And it basically because we loved our mom, we didn't want to leave her alone with this guy, you know? And so, and that is, you know, how people get caught in weird cycles of abuse and stuff. So, in retrospect, I don't know. We probably could have told someone, but you're young, you don't know any better. And then I was poor, and I was also doing crime, so I didn't trust the police, you know. And I also watched them interact with my stepfather. It was a very small town, so he went to jail for manslaughter, and they let him out in less than a year. So, you know, the system wasn't working well, and people just didn't know. So,
would you ever talk about it with your mom growing up?
No, never. And we still don't really. I've forgiven her, and you know, and I'm so aware of like how much she went through, how hard she worked, you know, as bad as things were, like she was doing her best. Like I cannot imagine if she hadn't have tried harder, how much worse it might have been. And I also don't know what she protected us from, what she endured. So, yeah, we don't really talk about it. I just think it's like so painful and so sad that there's really nothing to talk about. Like we love each other unconditionally. We're family, and that's that, you know, let's just move on forward. But, you know, one very cool thing is after my conversion and dealing with all of this, my mom has started her conversion.
Wow.
Yeah. So she's an RCIA now, or OCIA, I guess. So that's really cool. Yeah.
And your stepdad's no longer with us?
No, he's not. So he's been gone for quite a while, since I was in my 20s. But it was my childhood. And then in my early 20s, I was, you know, involved in gangs and doing crime, and also just being like, you know, a goofball, degenerate, like hardcore punk rock guy, you know, going to shows and sort of just living for pleasure in the moment. And
were you doing comedy at this time?
No,
Not yet.
I didn't start comedy until I was almost like a couple days before I turned 28.
As you may know, porn addiction is on the rise for both women and men today. The porn industry is $1 billion industry preying off of vulnerable men and women. The good news is that there is a solution, and our show is proud to partner with CovenantEyes.com. CovenantEyes.com is not only something to block explicit material on your phone, your tablet, or your laptop, but CovenantEyes.com is also a community to give you strength to choose good things instead of to choose the destruction of porn. Whether you're a parent protecting your kids, a husband searching for accountability, or a wife searching for accountability, or somebody who just wants to make sure that porn doesn't make it onto your screen, CovenantEyes.com has got you covered. So you can go to CovenantEyes.com and get a free 30-day trial using the code Lila. That's CovenantEyes.com. Use the code Lila for a free 30-day trial. Start your journey to freedom today. 7 Weeks Coffee is America's pro-life coffee company on a mission to fund the pro-life movement and help moms and babies in need. What I love about this coffee is it is from the top 1 or 2% of beans in the world, and it's also mold-free, pesticide-free, ultra-low acid, and organically farmed. And this is where you and I come in. Not only can we subscribe to 7 Weeks Coffee and get the most delicious coffee delivered right to our door, we know that with every single purchase we make at 7 Weeks Coffee, they are donating a full 10% to pregnancy resource centers in need. And a huge congratulations to 7 Weeks Coffee for hitting over $1 million donated to pregnancy resource centers and moms and babies in need. Go to 7weekscoffee.com today. Subscribe and save a full 15% off your order. And when you use the code Lila, you get an additional 10% off your first order. That's a full 25% off your first order at 7weekscoffee.com, and you'll also get a free gift. Order today and help fuel the pro-life movement. The lives of the saints are incredible witnesses to prayer and God's love in our lives and throughout history. I'm very excited about Hallow, the #1 prayer app's new challenge. They're doing a 7-day challenge accompanying with the prayers of the saints, including King David, Queen Esther, Saint Thérèse of Lisieux, one of my favorite saints. On September 15th, you can join for 7 days of prayer with the saints over at Hallow. I've loved Hallow now for years, ever since I first downloaded it. It is full of thousands of prayers, meditations, scripture resources, and more to help you deepen your relationship and walk with God. And then you can go over to hallow.com/Lila and download Hallow for 3 months free. Join me for 7 days, prayers with the saints, starting September 15th. That's hallow.com/Lila. How were you supporting yourself during that time?
Crime.
Wow.
So we would do, we would fence electronics, sell cars. We would do something called car hopping quite a bit, which is where you basically, and everyone's experienced this, it sucks. It's when a group of guys or a couple people just walk through your neighborhood and look for things in your cars and check if your doors are open or if there's something valuable, and you break the window and you take it. And you can make quite a bit of money doing that if you're fencing electronics and things. So we were up to stuff. And then I got involved in more serious gang activity, and then I started to do things like robberies and stuff like that. And then during this time also I did have a job, because you have to have a reason to have money or else you're gonna get in trouble, so I worked at like goofy retail jobs. I mean, there was one point where I was like committing strong arm robbery at night, and then the next morning I was opening lids, the hat store at the mall. It's wild, but I don't know, that's what we were up to. So
were you ever caught?
No, I was never caught. I was very fortunate not to experience any anything like that or get caught in hurt or anything. I was arrested or detained many times, especially because when you're a gang member, the police know who you are. They know who you're affiliated with. They have a rapport with you. They'll talk to you often. If they see you on the street, sometimes they'll pick you up and see what you're up to and check you, and so you build this rapport with them. And so over time, it's at night and there's a fist fight down the street and a cop knows who you are and he sees you and he's like, get over here, you're getting detained. So I've been detained and arrested and things, but I've never been caught doing what would I call a high profile crime, I guess. So very fortunate or unfortunate, depending on how you look at it. So.
And what was the state of your soul during this time? Because you talked about, you hinted at really horrific abuse.
Yeah.
You wanted nothing to do with him. These like goody two shoe Mormons that were saying, Jesus, Jesus. You're like, I don't.
Yeah.
You don't know what you're talking about,
Right.
basically. And now you're a very smart guy, you know, you're creative, let's say, you know, you
Sure,
are an
sure.
objectively creative person, but that's like the life of crime is where you're finding yourself.
Yeah.
And so what was going on in your soul at this time?
So outwardly, I was really obsessed with the idea of being like overtly positive. I was really into Albert Camus. Do you know who this is? So he coined absurdism, which is like funny or happy nihilism. And so I was really into that concept. Like you must like just to live and be happy is an act of revolution, which is actually a sort of like getting a piece of the truth. Where it is revolutionary to live in our world full of suffering and to love and to dance and to be happy and to care for people, you know, those are acts of revolution against sin and so on. But Albert Camus, he was not religious. And so, yeah, I was really into that. But what
did he write? What were his works?
He wrote, oh my gosh, I'm instantaneously blanking when you asked me.
I'm going to pull it up because
He wrote, it's funny because I know what the book is about.
No, I've read him. So that's why I wish I could.
It's a man in Algeria and I can't remember the name of the book, but
we'll pull it up here.
Yeah. Now I need to know. It's going to weird me out till I find out.
Weirded out
it's
too.
going to be
The Stranger, the Plague, the myth of Sisyphus, the Fall of the Rebel.
Yeah. The myth of Sisyphus. One must imagine Sisyphus happy. That was a quote that changed my life for sure. And I still really enjoy that quote.
So you were an intellectual gang member.
Kind of, I guess. I'm a nerd.
You're reading Albert Camus and you're like, let's go rob a bank. I mean,
I've always been a nerd. So I guess.
Were your other gang members reading Camus?
No, they weren't. They were doing other stuff. They were interested in girls and drugs and stuff. I was also sober.
You were not drinking.
No, when I was 14, I decided to become sober because I was just watching my family, my friends' families, you know, especially in the trailer park and stuff. And you could just see alcohol and drugs like tearing people apart. And you could also see like, oh, this guy's so cool, but he's drunk half the time and he's a monster when he's drunk. So I just decided I wanted nothing to do with any of that. And so I just gave it all up. And
was that also because when you say you saw people who were made monsters by drugs and alcohol, you saw your stepdad hurting your mom because of drugs and alcohol?
Yeah. I don't think I don't know if I want to use the word to his credit, but I don't think he ever acted in an overtly evil way when he was sober. Like he was a pretty cool guy when he was sober, but I just think he had experienced so many bad things and had put himself in so many situations and didn't know how to handle it, and he was medicating, you know.
And that's when you get violent.
Yeah. The violence was always, but you know, you can be drunk most of the time, unfortunately, and so yeah, there were times where that was the case, but you know, when he wasn't drinking, he was great. So that and that's confusing and terrifying, and that creates a situation too where you're sort of walking on eggshells all the time. What's going to happen when I come home tonight? Is my stepdad going to be the one day a month where he's like, do you want to watch Terminator 2? And it's really cool and he's fun, or is it going to be more of the usual? And you are always sort of, what's going to happen? Where should I go? What should I do? I'm taking risks. And that, I think that does more damage to your mental health almost than knowing that you're in a permanent type of situation, you know, where it's always going to be bad because it's like living with two people almost. It's crazy. That's really, really bad for your mental health for sure, especially as like a young man.
So at 14, you were saying you made this.
Done.
And why 14? What happened?
On my 14th birthday, I don't know. We were just partying and people were like, do you want to drink? And I was like, no, I'm over it. I'm done. I just like made the decision. It wasn't, I did make it because I became a part of a subculture called straight edge, which is like a hardcore punk subculture that promotes sobriety. And so I sort of like planted my flag in the sand. Like it was almost like, you know, like the preacher's daughter and she drinks and it's an act of rebellion. It was almost the reverse where I was like, I don't drink, act of rebellion. You know what I mean? And so I was sort of like sticking it to everybody by being like, I'm different. By not doing this, I'm being subversive. And so very luckily, I just stuck with it. And I'm sure it's been amazing for me. I'm already a bad decision maker sober. So I can't be. Can you imagine? I have a sword on my face sober. What would have happened if I was drinking? I'd have like I would have like a Gonzo the Muppet tattooed on my face or something crazy.
When did you get the sword?
The sword, honestly, I'm talking trash. I got the sword like it's a couple years ago as an adult man. But
Pre or post conversion? Post.
Pre.
So that was just happened. Okay.
But it is a Lord of the Rings sword.
Yeah, I was going to say a sword. There's some
yeah.
Christian
And people often confuse it for a cross, which I'm very happy to be like, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it could be a lot. Lord. It could be a skull. It's not a skull, thank God.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I know.
The sobriety did help you a lot.
Right.
So when you're in your 20s and you're literally a member of the gang, you're sober, you're what can you just tell us, what does it mean to be a member of a gang? What did that look like? Especially when you didn't ever drink with your gang.
So that's a really good question. So there are different types of gangs and organizations and how they work. And so, like, for instance, I was straight edge, which is considered almost like a hooligan type gang. There's lots of fist fighting and sort of like beating people up at shows. And it is like soccer hooliganism.
What kind of shows? Like music shows?
This is music, yeah. So there's a certain type of punk rock called hardcore that is really angry, and it's a very specific type of music, and the music has something in it called a breakdown, and it's almost like a 4/4 beat or whatever, and it's very slow and chunky, and when that beat happens, people in the concert, they punch and kick each other it's almost like dancing. And so the shows are like incredibly violent, but almost in a sort of football way. But because of this violence...
Do people get injured?
Yeah, people get injured for sure. And people are jumping off the stage and stage diving and kicking each other and throwing trash cans around and going nuts. And it's kind of like a free-for-all. It's a very masculine sort of crazy thing. And so groups of friends form things, and this is so dorky. I want everyone to know I know how dorky this is. So these hardcore kids, we would call each other hardcore kids, and we still do. Even though I'm a grown man with a wife and children, I'm a hardcore kid. And so you form crews or little groups of people, your friend group, and then you go to shows, and then you have conflict with other friend groups. Very similarly to the way soccer hooligans would have conflicts with other teams or whatever. So shows would happen, and then you would often have conflict with each other, and then you would fist fight and be enemies, but it would usually never go more than fighting. So that's one type of a gang you could be a part of. But I was doing that. That was like my reprieve from what I was really doing, which was getting involved with a motorcycle club that also had ties to prison gangs, and they were asking me and a particular friend of mine to do different types of work for them, almost under the table. And so we were members of the club, but we were doing things that other club members wouldn't be able to. And we also didn't have certain tattoos that you get when you're in the club or you go to prison that like mark you as a person who has been to prison or a member of gangs. And so because we're not marked, we can do different things depending on if we get arrested or not. And so I was involved in this crime, and that's organized crime. That's like they approached us at a show. And this is a guy from a club that was involved actually with my stepfather's motorcycle club. And they basically were like, hey, you guys want to make some real money. Like, we see you fighting and all this stuff, but do you want to do something real? And then me and my friend at the time were like, yeah. And they had us rob a 7-Eleven, almost as like a tester. But the person who worked at the 7-Eleven is in on it. So that's like kind of how robberies work. It's not just a strong arm robbery is that's strange to just go in. Like for organized crime, the guy knows they give him a little bit of money. We come in, we know when the safe is going to open. We pretend to rob him. We take everything. They cut us in. It's very like chill, right? And so we did that. And
It's not dangerous physically.
It's not dangerous physically, but it can be, especially in a place like Utah or Wyoming where random people might stop you, you know, like maybe in California it would be chill, but in a place where everyone's conceal carrying or like doesn't tolerate crime, it can be pretty dangerous. The civilians are almost more dangerous than the police oftentimes, like no joke. So so we did that and then it went well. And then they say, you want to do more? Well, you want to do more. And then you begin to like, you know, you're in the culture and you begin to make friends and people are like, hey, I know a fence. If you have any electronics, you can sell them here. And then you start car hopping and then you get involved in this culture and then you meet this guy and he's like, I know someone who has a bunch of drugs in their house right now. They just sold, save a lot of money. Let's go get them. And, you know, and then it spirals into you're fully doing organized crime. And so that sort of was my experience. And then over time, me and my brother were just experiencing so much violence and things were just so bad that we both decided together, like, let's leave this. And so
this was in your 20s.
This was in my 20s, my early 20s. Yeah. So I stopped doing, I think I was about 24 when I quit everything.
And was that because you were, like you said, there's so much violence and you were with your brother?
Yeah.
Were you afraid of getting shot? Like, what do you mean when you say you guys felt there was too much violence?
We were inflicting violence that was like they got to the point where it was escalating to the point where we were like, okay, this is like wild. Like, what are we even doing? You're looking over your shoulder constantly. You can never go anywhere alone because if someone who doesn't like you or has beef with you sees you by yourself, they're going to get you. And so you have to travel in groups always. So you're almost like sequestered in your home in a way, unless you have protection. You can't just go on a date with a girl. Like, your life becomes this paranoid sort of horrible thing. And then of course you don't have a bunch of money. And when you do get money, you're spending it poorly, you know, on pleasure and other things that you don't need. And so, it's just a sad, lonely life. But at first it is appealing, especially as a man. You know, you have all these brothers who have your back. You feel like you belong. You feel like you have respect, especially when you grow up poor. Like growing up in a trailer park, what are my options? I didn't graduate high school. I joined the Army. It didn't work out for me in the Army. I was injured. I was medically released. And then what? I'm going to go to college. I didn't even graduate high school. And then I don't have money. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm from the trailer park. I have no money. I have no credit because my stepfather put bills in our names and then didn't pay them. So he did that to me and all my brothers. So puts the gas in your name and then doesn't pay it till they shut it off, puts the gas in your different name, doesn't pay it till they shut it off. He did that to all of us. So my credit was like so bad. I had thousands of dollars in debt. I tried to tell them what he did. They did not care. So like I'm stuck in this horrific situation where I have no money, no credit, no prospects, no future. You know, what do? Do I go get a job at McDonald's? Women aren't going to want to date me. People aren't going to be nice to me. People aren't going to respect me. But if I pick up a gun and I rob a 7-Eleven and all these guys and their hot girlfriends and all these cool people who hang out at the clubhouse and stuff are gassing me up, telling me how awesome that is, and now I have respect. People are afraid of me. When I go places in public, people give me things. People know who I am. That's the dream. You know, young men don't want money. They want respect, you know? And so it's intoxicating. And it's sort of like, it overshadows all the negativity, you know? But as we know from really talking to anyone who's done crime for any longer amount of time, you know, that it wears off quick. So...
The high.
Or the
comfortability.
The comfort and the brotherhood and all that. It can't outweigh the negativity over time, you know.
And you were getting there with your brother.
I was, and I think like truly thank God that both of us one, we're on the same page together, so we could encourage each other to be brave enough to sort of leave that lifestyle behind and pursue something different, especially when we didn't really know what we were going to do. We just knew like we got to get regular jobs. And so, yeah, and that was difficult. And I worked a minimum wage job for quite a while. I worked like the hardest minimum wage job I've ever had. I worked with disabled kids. So I was like wiping butts and getting bit, 9 hours a day and making $8 an hour or whatever for years. So it was a tough road to sort of get out of that situation. But again, thank God that my brother encouraged me and gave me the sort of bravery to be like, oh yeah, let's like change our lives. And I think that also by me did the same thing for him, and we encouraged each other. So
How did you find that minimum wage job? Working with children with disabilities.
The government. My mom actually worked at the nonprofit, and then I had talked to the gang unit in Utah or whatever. They have like the government has like programs to help rehabilitate gang members or whatever. And I was just like, help me out. I want to cover my tattoos. I want a job, yada yada. And they were like, what kind of job? And I was like, my mom works here, and they placed me like right away.
Wow.
I got the job right away.
So were you working with children?
Yeah.
Wow.
Like young.
Did you have a criminal record at this point or no?
Yes. Yeah, they were like, let's get we got some autistic kids over here. Let's get a felon in the mix and just see what happens.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah. But there's a method to the madness. It totally worked to change my life. Yeah, working with those kids was an incredibly humbling, beautiful experience that definitely made me a more positive person.
Wow.
Absolutely. And I think softened my heart over the course of time.
And were these children that had been entrusted to the state, like foster care type
so
children?
they're so autistic that they're sort of dangerous to their families,
And are these older children?
They're like 13, 14, but they
can punch, they can fight.
Yeah, they have severe behavioral issues, and it's just so difficult, especially when you have multiple children. And so these families would often come to the group home and spend time and stuff, but it's just so difficult. And especially because a lot of them are from single moms. And as a single mom, like, how are you going to work and take care of your other children while you're dealing with, and then you're afraid that your one child is going to bite your other child. And so it's a heartbreaking situation, but it's also, awesome that we have a society where we can find a compromise where parents can love and be with their kids and also be safe, and they can have fulfilling lives where they grow up and like get to participate in society. So, and I'm friends with a bunch of my old clients who are now grown men. But at the time they were like 13, 14.
And did you watch them turn out? Like, did they, when you say they're grown men now, are they still suffering their disability now?
Yeah,
but are they still dependent now, or how are they doing now?
They're still dependent.
Okay,
they
but
still
you
live
stay
in the
touch.
group home and stuff, but we stay in touch.
Yeah.
And I'm like a legal guardian of one of them.
Wow.
Yeah, which means like every once in a while, like, I'll give them a call and see him when I can or whatever. Or like, if they're getting their medication changed, I'm like a part of that sometimes. Wow. But yeah, it's they're great.
What did you learn, or what was it like taking care of these children who had autism, these older, young teen kids who were, had violent outbursts and everything else? Like what was that like for you? You're leaving violence.
Yeah.
You're now taking care of these kids who are suffering.
Yeah.
You suffered as a kid. Right. So how did that look for you, and what was that like? What was that like?
It's funny, when I first got the job, I was sort of just like, like it didn't matter. I was just like, yeah, it's just a job. And then you work there over time and you begin to get to know them, and it's that sort of what a person isn't their intellect, and so a person is their heart. Like, God gives us a mind with which to know and a heart with which to love, but the heart with which to love is, I think, the main thing. And so
soul.
Yes. Yeah. And so to get to know people who I would have never gotten to know, and to understand that who they are as a person has nothing to do with their intellect, their place in society, or even how they can communicate with me, or even the bad things they do sometimes, just to see the true heart of who they were. And that was like a life-changing thing for me. And so,
wow.
it was awesome. It's very good. Like truly, truly great. I think that I genuinely feel like everyone at some point should have to go volunteer at the Special Olympics, go do something for people who are, you know, so authentically themselves, so, you know, different. It's just really good. I don't know. I love it. So, but
Did you have a favorite moment, by the way, from that time?
from that time,
Yeah, there's just a moment that
man.
really stands out to you as just meaningful for you.
yeah, I do. I have this client, and he used to. So every Halloween, all the boys would be obsessed. Like literally all year, they're talking about their costume. This is what I want to be. And so he's changing every week. I want to be a cat. I want to be a Jedi, whatever. And so one of my clients, he wanted to be Batman and he wanted to be a Jedi, and he couldn't decide. And I was like, dude, just be be Batman Jedi. Just throw the robe on over the bat suit. There's no rules. And that like blew his mind. And so we also used to have this where the manager of the place I was working, she didn't want the boys going out into public like wearing costumes on the inappropriate days or whatever. And she was kind of like, they're adults, they need to like, or they're older, they need to act like it. Like you can't just go grocery shopping in the Batman suit. But I would consistently bring it, because what is the point of being old enough to make your own decisions if you can't grocery shop as Batman? What are we doing here? You know? And so I have memories of taking that client out as Batman or a Jedi and stuff.
He's so happy.
Yeah. So happy, so stoked. And of course, people taking photos with him and like being goofy and like, you know, he's doing the voice. And those memories are like really precious to me. I love that. I like encouraging people to be like, wildly authentic, you know, just to go out in public and boldly be like, I'm Batman. Like, doesn't that makes everyone happier? There is no loss. You know what I mean? So I love that. It's really fun.
It's like, it's a positive, safe way to be fully authentic.
Right.
When those guys struggled with these, you know, verbal and physical lashing out that they didn't even have full control over, they really struggled with, right? So it's like this way to interact that was safe, but true blue and fun.
Yeah.
And I think that you gave them that space for that is so beautiful.
And when you encourage them to use their imagination and to live in the world that they're, you know, they want, this fantastical place where, you know, we don't get to live in that fantastical place, but they do. Yep. And that's a gift. That's a gift to them. Like that's the other side of the coin of their disability. They're disabled, and that's heartbreaking, and they're going to miss out on certain parts of life, and, you know, maybe they can't take care of themselves fully and stuff, but they also get to live in this fantastical world where Jedis are real and Batman, and he is Batman sometimes. And like, I think encouraging that in them made me encourage it in myself. And now as a comic, I like to encourage that in other people. That's like a huge part of what I'm up to, I guess. So yeah, I love that. I love that so much.
So when did you become a Satanist?
So
What a question.
Yeah, right. So things happen. I did that job. I ended up getting married, and then I ended up starting comedy, and then I was divorced. And so that has been annulled since, but my ex was into witchcraft and things, and that kind of like pushed me towards opening up to that, because this person I really cared about thought it was cool and interesting. And then more people that I thought were cool and interesting were sort of interested in that. And then I began to research it. And again, I like philosophy. I like all these things. And at the time I had read the Bible once, but I did it in I read the Bible. You know how atheists are like, yeah, I've read it. And you're like, you speed read Genesis and like one in Mark, maybe, you know? So I like read. So I was interested in religion and things. And as I began to research magic, then I began to get interested in sort of how it was in opposition to these institutions that in my mind were bad. Because again, I was angry at God, and I had been an atheist, and I had read all these atheist books. And these books are basically asserting over and over again that Christianity is like this negative force in the world, forcing people to do all these bad things and stuff. Of course, then you read a book like Dominion, or you just open any history book and you go, oh, actually, you're wrong. But so yeah, I was very negative, and then so I'm researching magic and all these things, and then I finished with that relationship with her, and I begin to date someone new, and this person is a part of, I think it's called the Temple of Satan. It's the secular Satanist group.
Not the Church of Satan.
Not the Church of Satan. So not LaVeyan Satanism, which it would be like I can't remember what this guy's name is. He's in charge of it, but he has like, he has like one of his eyes is white and like he just looks scary. He looks like Marilyn Manson or whatever. It's actually very dorky. Now that I'm looking at it from here, I'm like, the aesthetics of your thing is so dorky. Like, very cool. You look like an 80s pop star. Very evil, bro. But so they have their Satanist organization, and basically what they do is they use Satanism to cudgel Christianity out of politics and public life. And so like if you put the 10 Commandments in front of a courthouse, they will say, well, that's a religious item, you have to let us put Satan in there too. And so then as Christians, you kind of say, well, I don't want that, so then they want you to remove all religion so that they win. And so that was that group, and I kind of thought like, oh, they're doing activism against this group of people who are negatively affecting the world. And so I got involved with them. And
I got to ask really quick, I'm
Please.
sorry to interrupt. When you say, in your view, and this is your view now for like, I don't know, going on 2 decades or 15 years, negative view of Christianity.
Yes.
Like if I had asked you then, okay, what are your 3 biggest beefs with Christianity? What do you think you would have said?
I probably would have said they hate gay people and they want them to die, and they have promoted colonization and been a destructive force in the world. I would have said that the world wars were Christians' fault, probably. And what else would I have said? I probably would have said the repression and the mind control or whatever to repress people's sexuality is negative and bad, and you're hurting people and making them hate themselves, or basically all the basic things atheists say, And I also like, it's like people who play up their church trauma, and then you're like, so can you tell me more about it? And they're like, so they made me go every Sunday. You're like, the traumas that you had to go. In any case,
I was just talking to someone about their church trauma recently, or a friend of theirs that they loved whose church trauma. I was trying to get like, so what happened? Like what they hurt her feelings.
Yes. Yeah.
And I was like, how? And it like, and again, there's real church hurt, but it's
For
like
real.
when you really get down to it, you're like, is this the reason you're throwing away eternity? Like, and hope and all the things that can come with it? Because this one person hurt you, or these two. And there's some horrible things that Christians have done and still do. I mean, Christians are sinners like everybody else, right?
Yeah.
But it's tragic. It is tragic.
I find very often when people reach out to me, because I get hundreds of messages over the course of the last like 2.5, 3 years. I converted and am now Catholic, and people, when they reach out to me and talk to me about their struggles, it's almost always just that them and their parents aren't close, and their parents are very religious and pushed it on them without sort of educating them well, and they resent their parents immensely. And then, of course, they get involved in secular culture, and they go to the college, or, and they become involved in like degenerate behavior. And then that widens the gap between them and their parents just, I don't even want to say catechize, because most of these people are Protestants, but I'll use the word catechize just as a catch-all, but they're not, or educated. They're just not educated enough to sort of reach across the aisle in a way to bring them back, or to lovingly explain their position. And I get it. Like, we are not all apologists. Like, your parents aren't all going to be apologists. And sometimes it's very difficult to talk to someone and be like, even though I don't approve of or condone your lifestyle, I love you and I want the best for you, and I don't like resent you. But we also live in like a world now where if you say like, yeah, I'm Catholic, people are like, oh, so you hate me. I'm like, what? Like, immediately they just have this file of things they think about you, So, people with their parents, but
So thank you for letting me take you on that
Oh,
tangent. And
please.
I want
No,
to
I'm
I want
happy.
to come back to that because obviously your conversion
Yeah.
is also having a new mind about even that, the way you answered that question, which is so interesting. But so you're dating the second girlfriend and
Yes.
she is Temple of Satan.
Right.
And you're exploring this. Had you been doing any magic
Yes.
practicing already at this
I
point?
began to do it and it was
Okay.
working. And
Oh,
so,
tell me about that.
Yeah. So I was doing, and I don't want to get too into it. And also I was reading certain books. I'm not even going to name them, but so there are, books about the things, and I was practicing something called chaos magic, which is, it's like, it's literal magic. It's like spells and things. And, so I began to do things for like money and power, and of course these are all, they have sexual components to them, and it's really gross and degenerate and sort of evil, and they make a very specific mockery of certain sacraments or the marital act. Like they purposefully reverse the marital act into something that's totally self-serving, and that's the main tool by which witches and people who practice magic get what they're going to get, is by using the marital act in a subversive way with a ritual that is completely self-interested and doesn't take into account the person you're with in any way, shape, or form.
And is the other person part of the ritual? Like,
They don't have to be.
They're willing.
No.
So it's like
in fact, if they're not willing and unaware, it makes it more powerful, and that is
So
specifically told to you.
so it's like a form of rape almost.
Wildly evil, but you justify it to yourself at the time, and then
you justify it. Why? In what's going through the mind to justify it?
I'm not hurting them. They wanted to be with me. Who cares if I'm imagining other things, or if I'm not thinking about them, or if I don't care how they feel, or if I'm focused on what this is going to bring me and not them, and then you are with someone who's also doing it. And so now you're doing the marital act together, but it's something that is completely self-serving to both of your interests and not connecting you in any way, shape, or form. And of course, we're not married. And it's just this complete and utter total reversal and mockery, like so to the point that you're like, yeah, Satan is here. Like you can't change the marital act to be that selfish. But in any case, yeah, I was up to that kind of stuff, and it works, but there's a cost.
And when you say it works, you mean you were specifically doing these depraved things in these ritualistic, satanic way in order to get specific objectives met,
power,
like money, and you would make like you're literally trying to deal with Satan. Like, if I do this for you, then I get X.
So it's more subversive than that. It's you don't even involve him. What you're doing is saying, my perception is reality. And so that is the concept of magic. That's like the underlying concept that all people who practice like evil magic, that is what you're doing. So your perception is reality, which again is a very self-serving, me as the center of the universe, I am God. And when I do this, I get.
So it's manifesting.
It's manifesting. It is.
Do they call it manifesting?
No.
Okay.
But
there's a lot of gurus out there saying I'm manifesting this, and they make a bunch of money, or they
get it from magic. That's what they're doing. Manifesting is a form of witchcraft. When you're doing your a vision board isn't necessarily negative, but if you're doing it and you're sort of worshiping, you're doing rituals, all that stuff is connected to magic. And so, and again, it's incredibly self-serving. It's about my power and how I see the world is reality, which then negates every other person's reality. So every single one of us is experiencing our own specific reality, basically. And so we're all the center of our own universe. And then, of course, do what thou wilt will be the whole of the law. That's, what that results in. And so, and then it becomes subversive, and especially in magic, there's degenerate communities that are a part of it, and then they're like, well, as long as you're consenting, who cares as long as you consent? But consent isn't the end all be all, and also sometimes consent isn't consent. For instance, in America, we're the only place that that pays people to give plasma. And if you look at where plasma centers are, they're in low income neighborhoods. Are those people really consenting to giving away their blood for money? Or are they in a situation you've put them in where this is the one of the only ways for them to make money so that they consent under duress? And they might even think like, yeah, this is something I do. I like to make this money. But the reality is that the consent is not all the way there. You have been coerced in a certain way.
They would never, if they already had the money, they'd never do that.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. And so that becomes a lot of fetish communities, a lot of magic. It becomes a sort of, yeah, but we're all consenting, but it is incredibly subversive. And then it becomes more damaging to people. And then, of course, you have all these people who have all this trauma and everyone's mentally ill and everyone's in therapy. And they're like, I wonder why.
So there's so much to unpack there.
Right.
I know we're like getting up to the moment where you begin a conversion. But just to establish like where you came from. And I do think it's also very revealing to understand where some people even are today, because it is tied up with ideology. There's all these sort of crossovers, right? And so you're describing, it sounds like you're getting deeper and deeper into this hole.
Yes.
And you use the word degenerate or depraved a few times.
Yeah.
Is it constantly getting more degenerate and depraved?
Absolutely.
And why? What's the sort of motion like?
I just think that it's sort of like how people become, addicted to pornography, and it spirals out of control, and now it doesn't satiate you, and you need more and you need more. But the more you justify, well, if I've justified this, why wouldn't I justify that? And it becomes almost a logical problem. Well, if we're using each other in this way, why aren't we like hitting each other? Maybe we're into that. Why aren't we doing this or that? And it becomes, you spiral out of control into degeneracy begets degeneracy.
Yeah.
And that's like something that's just a well-known fact.
Is there weird trauma bonding happening with people?
Absolutely.
Where you're building these like incredibly deep, in one sense, relationships because of the depravity you're involved in?
So the depravity stokes up all your feelings, and the pleasure masks your pain. And so you're feeling so intense all the time, and you're with this person, and you're very, we all intuitively know these things are bad and evil. And so when you're doing them with someone, they're kind of giving you the go ahead, and you're feeling seen, and you're feeling like you're in this dangerous situation with them almost. And like they're seeing you doing this bad thing, but they're choosing to stay, and that makes you feel important. And again, it's all a subversive mockery of love, marriage, the sacraments, the marital act. Like they're perfect reverses. It's really creepy how reversed it is, but you're doing all these things, and it's just
and you're getting stuff for it. I mean, when you say you got money or power, you're literally seeing money just show up at your doorstep. Like what does it look like?
I'm beginning to get like just things are working out in weird ways. I do get more money. I do get an opportunity that is kind of crazy. Things happen here. I meet these people here, and they give me more power or whatever. And this sort of it's almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy, and then there's also you're sick, and you're telling yourself my perception is my reality. And so technically also, it doesn't even matter if the magic is really working as long as you believe it is. And if you believe it is, your soul is sick. And if your soul is sick, you're going to do degeneracy. And the more degeneracy you do, the more you need pleasure to cover the depression. The more you need pleasure, the more pleasure you need. The more pleasure you need, the more extreme you have to get. The more extreme you have to get, the more you have to double down on what you're doing. And it's like this crazy situation you get yourself in. And that's why people have like entire lifestyles dedicated completely around these weird communities and rituals that are just so disgusting.
What do those look like public facing? I mean,
that's kink.
Okay.
Yeah. Just these people wearing diapers.
Yeah.
furries, anything that is sort of on the extreme end of pleasure, where it's about you being the center of your world and what you can get and what you need and not what others need.
And then how does this interface with LGBT ideology? Was that ever part of like, oh, pride parades, or this is one step? I mean, how does that interface with that?
Well, because Christianity is the enemy of sexual expression, and LGBTQ is like the final frontier of sexual expression. It's so many people think it's negative or unnatural, or so many people are kind of uncomfortable with it. And so to publicly put it on display and to be really into it, that fires people up who are into this kind of thing. And it does end up being a thing where, like, what's wrong with you that you wouldn't do this? What's wrong with you that you wouldn't be interested in this? Who cares what they, and so it is sort of all integrated in a way where it's just about pleasure.
Did you do pride parades during this season?
I went to like one.
Okay.
I actually didn't like them, even as a very secular, supportive Satanist. I was like, these are creepy and corny. I didn't like them. So, yeah. But I did go to a couple. I performed at one as a comic. So, yeah, I've been.
And do you think that world, people who identify that way and are part of, kind of increasingly part of those cultures or subcultures, how much overlap would you say? Like, there's the kind of Satanists over here, people doing kink over here. There's people who are just like, hey, I'm gay and I just want my rights. And then there's the kind of trans phenomenon over here where people really think that's their thing. We just obviously had the horrific shooting of Charlie Kirk, and reports are coming out that his roommate was trans, and they had this kind of very violent kind of trans subgroup that they were part of that was kind of behind the shooting.
Yeah.
So anyways, I'm just kind of curious if you have a perspective on this kind of map maybe of where these different ideologies fall adjacent to each other.
I think that in that, like, in the LGBTQ space, they are so wildly anything goes, do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law, that you see people wearing satanic costumes and imagery and dog men and all that kind of stuff at pride parades. And I think that a lot of that stuff is LGBTQ plus hate plus a sort of anger at Christianity, a frustration, a lashing out, and their self-expression is in opposition to. Whereas, so they all get involved in this, but I do think there are people who, have same-sex attraction, and for whatever reason, that is just something they're struggling with, and that's not something that is in opposition to, and that's really the key. You need to, when you talk to someone or look at what they're up to, you can almost really instantaneously tell if what they're doing is for them or something they're going through personally or something they believe, or if the thing they're doing is in opposition to something
it's an
else.
Ideology that's fighting
exactly,
something. Yeah.
Exactly.
No, it's true.
And so, to look at it objectively, LGBTQ, even from a Catholic perspective, should just be like, yeah, that's a thing that you're dealing with. But to then couch it in... because I'm this, I'm anti you,
right.
and that's why they think it's what we're doing. When I say I'm Catholic and a gay person gets bummed out and they think I hate them, it's because they are doing that to me. In their existence is in opposition to, and they just don't understand that my existence is actually not that. Even if I don't agree with them, I'm not in opposition to them as a person, to their happiness, to their well-being.
I think they would just say, because my identity is gay, I want to get married. As a gay person, I want to have kids. I want to be equal, in society, and not have anyone look down on me or look down on, I shouldn't say me, but this activity, right, that I'm involved in, and then they would say, it is me, this activity. You can't separate the activity from my identity. And so that's where they do sincerely feel like you are opposed to me,
Right.
fully me.
And as your self-perception and your identity becomes wrapped in the acts you do, and in opposition to, you just become militant, you become bitter, you become angry, you become frustrated. You also begin to see everyone as out to get you. And, it's just so damaging to your mental health. And it's just a fact that we know people are suffering mentally so horrifically in society.
Yeah. There's a lot of people that are, I've known over the years who I've watched them get more and more into the ideology.
Right.
And they become very mentally unwell. I mean, they're very like fraught, that's all about therapy. They're always struggling, panic attacks, headaches. Like they're not well.
Right.
And then everyone's out to get them, everyone's out to get them. And then they have to fight for this identity. And it just becomes their whole life is oriented around fighting to protect this identity, which is this like intense emotional experience they're having, intense physical experiences they're having. And they feel like this is reality.
Yes.
And anybody who tells me otherwise is a threat to my existence.
Yeah. Yeah. It becomes like an existential thing. And it's really sad. But again, that map, there's definitely people who are just like, these are my sexual inclinations, whether you approve of them or not as a Christian, but they're not my identity.
Yeah.
And those people are almost always like very reasonable, very easy to talk to, very, I've never had a problem with anyone like that. It's always people who are sort of immediately in the second they hear that I'm a member of an institution that believes what we believe, they think like, oh, you're out to get me. What you do is to stop me. They think I'm in church, like doing something against them instead of for God. They just fundamentally don't understand what we do is for God, not against them or for us even, and so, it's a confusing thing to navigate for sure. And especially we as Christians, like, we're called to love these people and empathize with them and sort of see their struggles and pray for them and care for them. But, you never know who hates you. That's really scary right now. That's where I'm at, where I'm like, I'm almost like shoe on the other foot. Like, are you okay? Are you going to attack me, especially lately?
Yes.
With all the stuff I've received online. It's been insane.
And I want to hear more about that in a minute. But so when you were during this time, when you're practicing magic, you're a Satanist, you're involved in all this, deviancy and everything else. But then you're also kind of getting the highs of pleasure or power or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Was there any moment of conscience that you remember where you're like, there was that pit in your stomach, or how did you navigate that? Okay.
Yeah, there was, but it's easy to like to shoo it away.
Yeah.
And it is a nagging thing in your conscience. And that's why everyone is always gassing each other up. You go, girl, you're doing it. They'll say something degenerate. Yeah, that's you. Don't even worry about it. They're all sort of encouraging each other through their conscience and their thoughts and their frustrations. And they say like, oh, I'm sexually repressed, so this is just how I feel. But what are you talking about? You're in your 30s or whatever. Like you didn't undo the programming by now, or is it just your conscience and you need people to keep telling you what you're doing is good so you can justify it to yourself over and over and over again?
Right. They're still blaming their parents at 15 and they're 35, 45. And it's like, is that your parents at 15 or is that a conscience thing?
Right. And like you said earlier about people being like so depressed and like medicated and going to therapy all the time and they're not doing well. But other people are like, yeah, that's normal. This is normal. This is normal behavior. Everyone should go to therapy. Everyone is medicated. It's cool.
Everyone has trauma and constant panic attacks and nightmares and
everyone has anxiety. All of us struggle to call the bank now. We don't want to talk to them on the phone. Like it's it's obviously the victimhood mentality that people have been talking about forever. But it's like a cliche to say now at this point. But it really is. It's incredible.
All right. So what happened?
All right. So I'm in this situation. I'm with her. Eventually, my career starts to go well. And I decide to move to New York City to pursue my career like fully. And when I get to New York with like almost like no money, just a couple $1,000s in my bank account. I'm sleeping in a bunk bed in Brooklyn with my friend. And at this point, I had sort of steered away from magic and things. As I broke up with her, I was just sort of like, ugh, I don't want to do this. And I was having what I would describe as like demonic experiences. When I was a young kid, I would be afraid a lot. I would get really scared of like aliens or like, I don't know, like supernatural things, and I would be deathly afraid to the point that I would like pee my bed type stuff, And so I began to have those feelings as an adult. Like I would have these really intense, really scary feelings, or I would be alone in my house and suddenly I would be like, I'm not alone in the house. Like there's something in the house with me. Just this, almost the reverse of feeling the Holy Spirit. When you call down the Holy Spirit and you're in adoration or whatever, and you begin to just feel that lightness and that like everything is okay and I'm connected to everybody. And you almost just like weep without being able to control it. The reverse of that, the like, I am in trouble. I am not alone in the worst way possible. It's very oppressive. And so I began to feel that. And I was like, that was freaking me out. And I sort of was like, is this anxiety? Am I going through something? And so over time I moved, I stopped doing that stuff. I wasn't around her. I kind of give that stuff up, but I did have some really gross tattoos still. I had more than a few satanic tattoos. And so I began to pursue my career. My career starts to go really well.
What is a satanic tattoo, by the way?
Sigil of Lucifer, 666, magical symbols, pagan symbols.
In a place that you can see publicly?
Oh, yeah. I used to. So this cross on my hand, for anyone who, I don't know if this is letting you see. So the sigil of Lucifer used to be here on my left hand, like the left hand path. And when I converted, I was like, I have to cover this, right? And I went to my secular tattoo artist and I was like, I need to cover this. I don't know how to do it. It's really big. It's an awkward spot. And in my head, I was like, oh, we're just going to end up blacking this whole piece out. And then she draws up this cross while I'm in the bathroom. Funny enough, I'm in the bathroom of this secular tattoo shop in Brooklyn and I'm washing my hands and I look up in the mirror and I hate getting tattooed. You'll be surprised to find I hate getting tattooed. And so I'm kind of hyping myself up like, oh, it's going to hurt so bad to get my hand tattooed right now. And I look into the mirror and behind me is a giant thing, a giant tapestry of Saint Thérèse of Lisieux, just looking at me. She said my tattoo artist just bought it in France because she thought it was beautiful. And she's my confirmation saint. So just incredible, there waiting. And so I come out thinking I'm about to just black out my whole hand. And she goes, look at this. And she's like, it's fat, but it's cool. And she drew my fat cross. But the sigil of Lucifer is shaped in such a way that when she drew it, she filled it in and turned it into a cross. But perfectly, there was left 3 diamonds in it for the Trinity. And I was beautiful. Like, whoa, that's so cool. So she didn't even know. She wouldn't have even known to do that.
Oh, she didn't know you were a Christian?
No, she knew I was a Christian, but she didn't know enough about Christianity to be like, the Trinity is in the cross. Like, that is just how it happened to her when she just drew it like that for me.
Saint Thérèse.
Incredible.
I gotta ask, so is that a rose on your forehead?
Is.
So yeah. Saint Thérèse probably doesn't mind that one.
No. Funny enough, so this rose I got for no reason. I just wanted a tattoo. So it means nothing. Or
how
it
long
meant
ago
nothing.
was that?
20 years. I don't know. I was a young man. So very young man. So I got this tattoo and it meant nothing. During my conversion, I meet a gentleman named Father Weta. And he's, I think, a Norbertine priest. And he's very funny. He's a religious. And I was sitting at Seek in my raggedy clothes. And he came up to me because he thought I was homeless. And he was like hanging out with me, talking to me. And then he finds out I'm like a comedian. And he starts to ask me questions. And he goes, what's the deal with this tattoo? And I was like, it means nothing. It's literally just there. And he goes, can I give it meaning? And I was like, sure. And he goes, Saint Thérèse of Lisieux.
Wow. Was this before or after the tapestry?
So this is before the tapestry.
Wow.
Yeah.
She's following you around.
I know. I know.
That's amazing.
She's incredible. So, yeah, that's very funny. So this is Saint Therese's rose.
It's literally on your forehead like that.
And so I've had other people who have asked for intercession from Saint Thérèse that I have helped in ways that were like invaluable to them. But the rose that showed up was my rose on my face.
What is that?
So when you pray,
well, yeah, I know.
When she intercedes for you, sometimes you get roses from her. Well, so I've helped people who I didn't know had asked for that specific help and intercession from Saint Therese, and I was the material method by which that intercession
you were
happened,
the rose,
and I was the rose. And they're
crazy.
like, I prayed for this help, and there's the rose.
And you were helping,
and I was the help.
Little to your knowledge.
Little to my knowledge. Isn't that cool? Yeah. So that's like one of my favorite
You're a son.
things.
You're stamped.
I know.
You're
Isn't
a
that
son
fun?
of Saint Therese. Wow.
Yeah.
That's so crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's really beautiful and cool. Really like a neat thing.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right. I know I keep interrupting. There's so many sideways here, but
I'm
you
happy to
were
talk.
getting up there. You were getting to
we're
this.
getting up there. So I'm doing comedy. My career's going well, and it starts to go really well. And now I have money, and we have a cool apartment, and things are going well. And I have like any woman I want, well, not any woman I want, but I have access to women and all the things that men want, secular, And so I began to get the most depressed I've ever been in my life. More depressed than when I was a child or at any other point. All the violence I've experienced, I'm the most sad I've ever been. But I'm blown away because I'm doing the best I've ever been. I have money for the first time. Like, I remember weeping in a a Chili's, because I had just gotten my very first deposit from my comedy album, and I ate and I didn't check my account before I ate. And I just started crying because I was like, oh, I didn't even have to look at my bank account. I just have the money to eat here. And that was like a life-changing thing at like 31. So, because I was poor my whole life. And so this is a big deal. Why am I so sad? What is going on? And then I began to make friends with famous people, and I have a show, and I'm involved in politics. I'm doing leftist politics, and I had a show on a major network in New York with a very famous friend of mine who's a liberal, and we would like discuss politics. And she's a liberal, and I was left of her. I was like a full-on communist. And so we're doing the show. So I'm doing a communist show. I'm making all this money. I'm doing comedy. Partying. I have all the pleasure in the world I could want. I'm the most sad I've ever been. And then I began to think about ending my own life. And I was like, this is crazy. Something has to change. And so I was sort of really trying to think it through, and I'm like reading different books, and I'm trying to be self-aware, and I'm trying to like meditate my way out of this and exercise my way out of it. And I begin to notice that I'm friends with all these incredibly famous people, or these people who are doing really well, or these like, beautiful women and stuff. But everyone, like, you look at their social media and they're doing so good, but then like close friends on Instagram became a thing, and you would see like they would post like, oh, I'm having fun partying, and then that night they're posting crying at home, and they're all medicated and they're all miserable. And when we get to know each other, they need help, and they're all in therapy, and they have so much trauma, and everything is bad. And I'm like, wow, they have everything they could want. They're the people, and everyone's so miserable. And then I was like, okay, so everyone I know in New York is miserable. Who's happy? And then I started to realize, like, my friends from where I'm from, my like non-comedy friends, my real friends, my friends from the small town back home. And so I started to look at their stuff, and like, oh, you post on Facebook once a year and you have a fish, and you love your wife and you have kids. Like, it kind of was this thing where I noticed all these people in New York are having lots of fun, but they're miserable. And then my friends with families were like worked to the bone, but they were so happy. So I'm like, all right, I'm looking at this the wrong way. What I need is fulfillment. And so I began to think, what would fulfill me? And I began to be like, well, I love my family. I love my grandfather. I love my mother. And so I I decide to get more into my family. And basically, I decide to myself, I'm going to go back to my conservative roots. And even though I'm a communist and I'm on the show and stuff, I'm going to be more socially conservative. So I'm going to start putting family first. And then my grandpa got deathly ill, and he was in his 90s. He's going to die. He had like a pacemaker that stopped working years ago. He was invincible. It was crazy. He couldn't be stopped. And so he was like 100 years old and he's going to pass away. And I decide to move away from New York, give up possibly, all these opportunities and things to just be with my family in Salt Lake. So I left New York and I came back to my family, and I'm working on being more conservative and sort of putting family first. And maybe that's going to make me happier, and it's working. Okay, pretty cool. But I'm still making a lot of mistakes and I'm still pretty unhappy. And so I'm with my grandfather, and eventually he passes away. And like, that wasn't as sad as I thought it would be. He was 100. He wanted to die. He literally talked for like 7 years, like, come get me, come on, Jesus, where are you at? Let's go. Like,
but he was a Christian.
He was a Christian. Yeah, he wanted to go. He was over it. He's very funny like that. And so he was ready. So he passes away, and he was so brave and so cool and so sure that I wasn't grieved by it at all. And I was actually really blown away that I wasn't grieving. But then I started to have these crazy thoughts, like I had to go to church. And I was having these dreams about church, and they weren't just churches, they were Catholic churches, altar, stone, beautiful stained glass, like churches proper. Capital C. So I'm like, that's weird. And it becomes almost like a complete obsession where I'm thinking about it without even wanting to. Like, why for the first time in my life am I thinking about this? And it becomes such a thing that it begins to annoy me. And then, so eventually I end up having a doctor's appointment, and in the middle of the day at like noon, I go to this church. And in my head, I'm like, okay, I'll just go to the church and I'll have done it. I'll have done the thing and I can be done. And I was so used to Protestant churches that I thought, I'll show up at noon, it'll be closed. I'll kind of like, I tried, oh well, but it was a Catholic church and it was open.
Where was this?
This is in Provo, Utah.
Wow.
It's a Spanish parish. So I walk in not understanding like what's going on.
Had you been in a Catholic church before?
I had been in a cathedral before as a tourist.
So that was sort of in the back of your mind, a vision that you had maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So I'm in a church that's smaller. It was a
Yeah.
very beautiful church though. It's not a cathedral or anything, but I didn't really, it opened and I'm like, great. So I walk in and I open the door to like kind of go, I was going to sit in the pew, and they were having adoration. I didn't know that at the time. So there's all these Spanish women like rapid fire praying the rosary, very intense, and wearing their veils and everything. And I'm like, oh, okay. And I'm really nervous. I don't know what to do. And I just like kind of walk in, and I go to the very back pew, and a bunch of them are kneeling while they're praying. And I was like, well, okay. And I put the kneeler down, like, I guess I'll do this. And then I knelt down and I was looking at Christ on the cross, and I was like, hey God, like that was my opening move, was a life of atheism. And the first time I talk to God in my adult life, I say, hey God, like, what's up, big dog? Like, it's very informal. I didn't know what I was doing, but I was like, hey. And then I was like, am I supposed to be here? And then I began to have this dialogue without realizing I'm praying, where like, do you love me? Do you care about me? Where's my grandpa? What? And I start to ask these questions, and I start to have this experience. And I look over, and Our Lady of Guadalupe is there. And I'm so uneducated with Catholicism that I thought that was I didn't think that was Mary. I thought that was a different lady, a different separate. I was like, whoever the Our Lady of Guadalupe is, good for her, I had no idea. And so I'm looking at this painting of a woman. I have no idea who she is. And I kind of look forward, and then it happens, and I'm sort of in this strange state where everything is like bright, and it's almost like I'm not dreaming, but I am. And I don't know how to describe it because she's there in front of me. And it was almost sort of like wherever she was, like, bent everything away from her. Like she was just this light. But she was a woman, and I could see her, and she had features, but I can't recall them, and I can't, I don't know how to describe her. And the only way I've ever known how to describe her is this. So she walked close to me, and I'm having this experience, and I'm not scared, but I'm like I'm like having a psychedelic experience is what I'm thinking is happening. Like I'm kind of freaked out, but it's very calm, and she reaches out and she like touches me. And then like in that moment, well, I mean, my whole entire life changed like immediately. It healed my resentment with my mother, my resentment for my stepfather, any hatreds I had. It changed everything. It softened my heart in ways like just instantaneously. But the way I know how to describe her is this. So I can't describe her physically. I saw her features, but I can't recall them. She was this bright light, but what I know more about her is what it felt like. And what it felt like was my mother was a very tough lady, and she was kind of my dad and my mom. So she didn't give us a lot of like motherly love. She was more interested in keeping us safe and strong. And to her credit, it worked. But so she was my dad in many ways, you know? So she taught me how to fist fight. She's this rough and tumble lady, and she's like a hardcore cowgirl, you know? You don't mess with her. And so not a lot of motherly love from her. She ended up in the role of like a provider more. And so I didn't experience that a lot. But one time I did, and it stuck with me permanently. And I stayed the night at a friend's house, and I'm sleeping in a sleeping bag on his floor, and he's in his bed, and there's his little CRTV. You know, this is the early 2000s. I'm a young boy. I'm like 13 or something. And I stayed the night at his house, and I have severe insomnia my whole life. So he's asleep, and the TV's like on a little bit, and I'm awake. And I hear the door start to open, and I pretend to be asleep. I don't want to get in trouble or whatever. Or I don't even want to talk to whoever this is. And into the room, while I'm pretending to be asleep, is his mom. I can't see her because I'm pretending to be asleep, but I can distinctly feel her in the room. She turns the TV off, and she comes over, and I can just feel her, like looking at us. And she's looking at her son sleeping, and you can like... there's just like this feeling of love, like a mother just looking at her son and like filling the room with love and appreciation. And she's just in this moment looking at both of us, and she kind of tucked him in, and I think she like kissed him or whatever. I could like feel her above me. And then she did the same for me. And, I wasn't awake for it technically or whatever, but it felt like she was loving us, and that motherly love was like so special and good. And to see Mary was like that times a million. It was this incredible experience that it was just like that unseen love that like, I want nothing from you. I just appreciate you. I'm just looking at you so peacefully and beautifully, like the only way a mom can, And so that is what it was like to see her. I don't have her features. I don't remember what she was wearing, but I just remember her and how powerful that felt. And so that happened, and then she was gone. She touched me, and then it was over, and I was just like, where am I? Like, what was that about? And of course, I was such an obstinate little jerk that I left the church, and I was kind of like, I think I did drugs or something. Like, what was that about? And even though it affected me emotionally, I was almost resistant. So I decided I was going to go back to church. And not necessarily to test God, but to be like, what was that? And I went to the one cathedral I had been to, which is the Cathedral of the Madeleine in Salt Lake City. And I went into the pew. And before I had gone, two things had happened. One, I had a conversation with my mom where I found out for the first time in my life my grandfather was Catholic. I had no idea. He's from Switzerland. They were a Catholic family that moved to Orange County, actually. They were dairy farmers. So he was Catholic, and then I began to do research on the Catholic Church because of this. Like literally minutes after leaving my mother's house, finding this out. And then I put on a video by Father Mike Schmidt where he's talking about praying for the dead.
Wow.
And that concept blew my mind, right? I grew up with almost no religious education, but the religious education I did have was very, it had nothing to do with praying for the dead or communicating with anyone besides Jesus. And so that was really interesting to me. And I thought, I'm going to go talk to my grandpa or try to figure that out. And so I went to this church and I did the same thing. I put the kneeler down. I'm in the big cathedral and it's not adoration or anything, but I'm in there and I get down on my knees again. Okay. Hey, God, I'm back. What's up? And I began to pray like, Grandpa, are you there? And then I sort of got, this like, God, please, like if my grandpa's with you, like, or even if he's not, like he was so cool. He was a really good man. Like I'm bargaining with God, like to get my grandpa in heaven. Like it's how it works. He's fine. But so I'm talking to God and I'm having this emotional experience where I begin to pray for my grandpa. Like it stops being about me and it's just about him. And like, please, like I want him to be okay. Like, I hope he's with you. If he's up there, if that's real, take care of him. And it's really emotional and it's like affecting me. And then I have that same feeling again. And I just felt like Christ and Mary were there. And this time it wasn't a vision, but it was just that like that feeling you have when the Holy Spirit comes over you and that sort of it's so hard to describe an intense spiritual experience, especially when the spiritual experiences are interacting with you materially, but more than anything spiritually. And so I had this experience basically where I was very sure that my grandpa's in heaven with Jesus. And I was like, all right, that's it. I'm dedicating my whole life to this. This is it. This is the way to be. The church is true. And I converted. And I converted before changing many of my leftist opinions. So I basically just submitted to the church. But over time, all those, I logicked my way into where I'm at now. But yeah, I fully committed myself, despite the fact that I like didn't understand. And, I just basically put all my faith in God. Like, all right, this is your church. You want me here. I don't know if I don't know about these rules, but let's go, let's do it, And so, since then, this is where I've been. So I immediately enrolled in RCIA, and like all adult converts who are too intense, I'm like, give me the Summa Theologian,
Right.
Give me it all. And I was reading everything. And since then I've just been plugging along, doing everything I can to be the best Catholic I can be and teach people about Jesus and be a strong witness, but also not in a way that comes across as goofy or corny. I try really hard to be like not a Catholic comedian, but a comedian who is unapologetically Catholic. Like I'm not Catholic on accident, but I'm also, I want people to know that I'm like a whole and complete person. Because I think people think that you lose your identity or you lose your ability to pursue things when you become Christian. But I think it's the reverse. Once your heart rests in Christ, you are fully fulfilled. Once you're fulfilled, and this is the most important thing you can do, nothing else matters. Well, anything else you pursue is going to be totally, completely, authentically what you love or what you're passionate about because you are fulfilled. And so everything you pursue, if you're not fulfilled, may not actually be for you or your calling or what you truly love because you're looking for fulfillment, not honoring your passion, And so like, are you trying to make, I don't know, I'm going to say something dumb, like scuba diving your identity, and this is, you dedicated your life to it and you love it. And I think people who do stuff like that are so cool that have like a passion, but that may not be the correct way to engage with that passion because you're trying to fulfill something that Christ can do for you. And how much more beautiful and fun and interesting would your passions and your hobbies and the things you pursue in your personal life be if they were nothing to do with what fulfills you. And they were totally your authentic response to the world and how you want to express yourself.
The overflow.
Yeah. And so that's like what I want to show people the most is that once you find Christ and you rest in him and your heart is fulfilled, that then what spills over is truly the most authentic version of you. Through submission to him, you gain true freedom to express yourself. Whereas all other self-expression may be yearning for him, you know, and pulling you into an opposite direction. And that's something that like I'm really passionate about and that I think people need to know for sure. So
welcome. Welcome to the church. I mean, it's been how long now? Is it
2 years?
2 years. Wow.
Yeah. So like 3 years. Yeah, because I did RCIA for a full year.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
What was the process like for you of first of all, it's what's really beautiful. There's so much that's beautiful about this, like our Mother Mary loving on you, and you know your grandpa in a way in his passing. I'm sure he was praying for you. Yeah. He was like, "Let's just get this guy in. Come on, guys.
Yes,
I did my time on earth. I'm in heaven. Let's get Shayne. We need to get him in."
I truly believe more. Yeah, he interceded for me. Yeah, 100%.
And Mama Mary's like, "I'm ready to go.
Right,
Here I am."
Right.
But what's so beautiful, you made some comment just a few minutes ago about how you still had all these leftist politics
yeah,
and ideologies, but then you're like, okay, whatever just happened between me and God is real.
Yes.
And I'm going with that.
Right.
And I believe it's the Catholic Church. You know, you're Catholic. You're not just like, oh, I accept Jesus into my heart. I'm Christian over here. It's like, no, this is the church and we're going to do the Catholic. We're going to be Catholic. Did you wrestle with the ideologies that you had and the church not agreeing with you?
Yeah.
And how did you come to a resolution there? And I ask that because there are a lot of people who are Catholic or were raised Catholic, but they hold on to ideologies and ideas that are contrary to the faith. But then they still say, well, but it's, you know, the Catholic Church will figure it out eventually. Like they are God ultimately.
Yes.
They wouldn't maybe say that, but that's how they're behaving. You were not in that lane at all.
Their perception is reality. They perceive this to be the right thing. So eventually the church will come to my reality.
Yeah.
Right? So, yeah, I just thought, I think I'm very fortunate that I have like a philosophical education and that once I realized God was real and then this is his reality and I'm in his reality, you know, I'm only here because of him. And so like what is real has nothing to do with what I perceive, which is a really, really, really freeing realization, like a really beautiful, good realization to be like, reality is reality no matter what I think, feel, or see. Yeah. And it's incredibly important. Like
very comforting.
Yeah, it really is. And so I had issues with abortion. Which funny enough, when I was a secular person, I watched a debate you did to prepare to try to debate for abortion. And you did a very good job, by the way.
Wow.
But
Crazy.
Isn't that crazy? And look at us now. We're here talking about Jesus with a piece of the true cross on the table, crying about Mary. And I'm
gonna cry now.
Watching you as an enemy, literally trying to gain arguments so that I could do a public debate on my platform. Isn't that incredible?
It's incredible.
And now we're here together. So that's really beautiful. But yeah, I struggled with a bunch of different doctrines. And I also struggled with like ways I perceived church history. And I also was one of those weird freak guys who was like, maybe Jesus wasn't even real. And so after converting, I thought, I have all of these issues, you know.
After, not during.
Yeah, after. My heart is healed. That is real. It happened. I'm all in, right? But I have all these struggles. And so I go, okay, I need to intellectually get there now. I'm spiritually there. I want to intellectually get there. My heart with which to love was moving, but my mind with which to know needed some time. And so I began to dedicate myself to that. And luckily, the Catholic Church is wildly true and very easy to you just research it and you go, oh, good. And, like, oh, awesome. Like, Jesus is so real. Like, the most documented guy. Alexander the Great is less documented than Jesus, and so you're like, oh, okay, good. And then you learn about church history and you see all the beautiful, good, wonderful things the church has done. And you see its mistakes as well. But in seeing that it is run by sinners, you also see the trueness in it, because it is a real institution of men and women, and they are doing their best, and moving the ball forward. But it's how you would expect it to be, because people think like, oh, you're Christian, you think you're perfect or whatever. And then you read about the saints and you're like, oh, they're just like me. Oh my gosh, they are. Some of them are really bad at life until they become saints, like, oh, good. And so I'm intellectualizing a lot of this, and I'm learning about church history, and I'm reading books, and it all just starts to fall into place. And as you do the research and you do the work and you read the Bible and you pray and you're like, reading Josephus, and you're finding out that like, yeah, Jesus is definitely true. And you're reading about, church history and the councils and all these things that happened. And it just, now, and then eventually you intellectually catch up with yourself spiritually. And now I'm here. But the submission to God and the church, if you submit to God, you submit to the church. I think that was incredible for me. I think God gave me exactly what I needed, because I would have tried to intellectualize away the church. I would never have gotten there intellectually and then spiritually, which I think a lot of people is how they do it. I think that they do the research and they kind of realize, I think this may be true. I'm going to come see what it's about. And so their heart is meeting up with their mind. But God gave me exactly what I needed, which was my heart first, mind second. And now the intellectualizing of the faith, which I've some of my spiritual directors have been like, hey, don't do that too much. You need to, maintain your spiritual life. Don't go too crazy on just reading Aquinas all the time.
Hey,
and
it's great.
Making it into like a scholastic thing, But at the same time, I love it. It's my favorite.
I'm sure there'll be people who will be really moved by that specifically. So I'm not your spiritual director. Obviously, your spiritual directors know better, but I don't know. I feel like if that's your love, that God will work through that. I'm sure, and already is working through that.
Yes,
which is really beautiful. I should have already asked you, but when you talked about this moment of healing that you received from Jesus and Mary, and from Mary, and then further healing from Jesus and Mary.
Can I tell you one specific thing about that experience?
Please,
so,
yeah.
I'm kneeling in the pew and I looked to my left and Our Lady of Guadalupe was like over my shoulder, like far enough left. I begin to have this experience and I look forward and Our Lady's in front of me and she reached out and touched me. And as she did, she was gone and in front of me was Jesus. The crucifix was exactly where I was looking. So again, Our Lady leads me directly to her son, like immediately. And so, I just wanted to point that out, that it was a moment that I remember specifically in something that's just so beautiful. And like, obviously that's her whole thing. She leads us to her son in such a way. But yeah, it was really good. So Jesus really doing the work.
Explain more what it felt like, what the experience of being healed emotionally.
Yeah.
And maybe it's psychological and spiritual even, to be healed of childhood trauma and the resentment towards, you mentioned your mother and your stepfather for the abuse you experienced. Yeah.
And many, many others too. I mean, I let go of hate I had for so many people. I don't know how to describe it. We all know that feeling of having that weight lifted off of you when you tell someone something you've been holding in or whatever. It felt like that times a million. It was incredible. I think that how instantaneous it was is what shocks me most, because it wasn't like it happened and then right away I was self-aware, like, oh my gosh, I forgive my stepfather. But it was, she touched me and it affected me so much. And I was so moved that as I began to to live my life afterwards, anytime I would imagine these things that normally I would be hateful or frustrated, I sort of found my heart to be like soft and malleable, and like I just didn't have it in me to be mad or to be resentful. And then when you're not resentful and you're thinking of people, like loving thoughts lead to loving action, and so I'm not resentful of my stepfather, and I'm thinking of him, and I'm thinking of the good parts, and then I realized like, oh, I wonder what happened to my stepfather after his death. And then I began to realize like, oh, I so badly want him to be in heaven, like so much, and then there's that, like, she leads you to this place where Christ's mercy is so available, so obvious to you, and something you want to emulate so much that, I'm praying for this man who treated me so badly. And I'm like, that is just an experience I would never have had. There's no explanation for how my heart would move in that direction. Like I hadn't done anything except for open myself up to God. Like that was the antecedent, right? I came into church with an open heart and a truly, like, I'm here. Like I give it all over. What's up? Are you real? And by opening myself up in that authentic way, I think Christ was like, let's go, buddy. Yeah. Awesome. Here, you had struggles with your mom when you were young, borrow mine, and then it will get you going in life.
So this, like, you experienced the healing. The healing happened when you saw Our Lady and she pointed you to Jesus on the cross, but you experienced the healing in iterations afterwards when you realized, well, I don't have hatred. I have only love in my heart.
Right. It just felt like she just, like, my heart was like covered in crust, and as she touched it, it just melted away. Wow. And what was left was a real Grinch moment, actually. And then I find myself still to this day, I just don't have it in me. I just don't have it in me to be hateful, to be miserable about my childhood, to be resentful, to be anything but loving those who are with me and those who have loved me, and, those who will. Like, I don't know. It just changed me fundamentally. But I wanted the change. I did. I was interested in the change. And I think that, that's a big part of it too.
I think about the fact that love is a gift, and faith and hope. These are theological virtues that are gifts. Yeah. So we can't earn them. We can develop them more with our other virtues by receiving them, but they're really given, they're infused. Mm-hmm. And so you were given love and you received it, of course, because you have to, half of it is getting it. To get it, you have to receive it and choose to receive it.
Yes. Yeah. And then that's a big part. I think that is, as far as my conversion goes, something that when people ask me for advice, like, I don't have a lot of spiritual experiences, or I'd really like one, firstly, you don't need a spiritual experience to convert. Like, everyone's path is going to be different, and I know so many cradle Catholics who are like bummed out. They're like, it's so cool that you have this big experience, and I've just been like going to mass since I was a baby, but that's not, you shouldn't worry about that. Yeah. That's
and you can talk to Jesus about that.
Yeah.
Tell him, I'd be like, listen, I would like something. Can you give me something?
Right.
If it's your will, I love you. I want to be, obedient and love you. But the Lord's so generous. Yes. And I just think he does actually give you a lot. There's a lot of graces, but you kind of have to develop the ears to hear it and the eyes to see it a little bit, which you develop by asking him for and going to pray and just sitting with him in adoration.
Yes. Yes. And so I think that's a big part of it. You have to make an effort, open your heart. You have to desire, and then, of course, if you do, he wants that for you more than anything.
Wow.
So you're going to get it.
What has the aftermath looked like for your relationships post conversion?
A bunch of them end instantaneously. Like when I publicly came out as Christian, when I was telling people like, yeah, I'm going to classes at this Catholic church and I go to mass like multiple times a week and I pray, and they were kind of like, yeah, whatever, like you're on your journey. But once I did Matt Fradd's podcast, Pints of the Aquinas, and I came out publicly like Shayne Smith converts. I posted it. I was like, this is what I'm up to, everybody. I felt convicted to do this. That is when people began to abandon me, because now it's bad optics. Now I'm all in. Oh, Shayne's not just doing a fun praying thing. He's one of those weirdos.
And was it because you now are pro-life, pro-marriage?
It's just because of everything that comes with it. I think that they just assume like if you're Catholic, you're all these things.
Yeah.
Which is true.
Yeah.
But like, they just, and you know what? Honestly, I don't think most people who didn't want to be my friend anymore or who treated me badly online even know what the Catholic position on a lot of this stuff is. So I think they just dislike me based on just Christianity. That's it. That's enough. Like they've framed Christianity as the enemy in culture. And so that's just how it happened. So I publicly converted thinking, this may be bad. And I also was like, I decided when I converted, I was no longer going to do like, I was only going to do clean comedy. All my comedy from now on, even if it's live, is going to be consumable by like, if you want to bring your 13-year-old, you could. And so that may hurt my career, but we'll see. And then coming out, and telling people I'm a Catholic, that may hurt my career. I kind of was like, we'll see. When I posted, it was crazy. I mean, multiple people who I am good friends with, people I have been on road trips with, that I spent time with, that know my secrets, were like, I don't want anything to do with you.
How would they express that? Like that?
Telling me, yeah, straight up. Like you're lost when you're done. Yes, literally, I'm disappointed in you. This is disgusting. When you're ready to stop doing sky daddy things, I'll be waiting for you to apologize to me. Like, yeah. Just horrific.
Did they make it about like, well, the church hates gay, like something that they could cling on to about why specifically they hated Christianity?
Some people did, but mostly it was just this vague, like, just I don't like you, or I don't want to be involved with you if you're going to be a devout Christian or a Catholic. And of course, many people threw the abuse scandals in my face. Like, oh, so this is what you're about. This is your deal now. And so that's awful. And I mean, that happened. So I lost a bunch of real life friends. I lost work. There were people who didn't want me to do their shows anymore. And so I lost quite a bit of like places I could perform. Other comics like kind of don't talk to me anymore. And then, then the harassment online was incredible. Like, death threats over converting
to Catholicism.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's because I went from a secular communist who's championing communism basically, or the ideals of cultural Marxism and stuff, to, hey, I'm Catholic. We're vampires and werewolves. We're the opposites. And so that just people couldn't handle that. And so many of these people lashed out at me in really, really vile, intense ways. I mean, doxed me, doxed my family, threatened my work, called all my coworkers, my 8 people to try and get me fired or to try and not get to me work at certain clubs. People were saying I was racist. Like, I mean, the gambit of all of the kinds of crazy things you can experience, to the point that I was like, oh, my career's over. I literally thought like, well, I've isolated 90% of my fans. And so like, what's going to happen when I tour next? Like, this is awful. Thank God that is not what happened. And I went, and many people still support me. It turns out a lot of my fans are regular people, and regular people aren't psychopathically evil. But I did have a lot of those people who just lashed out so crazy. In their head, they are in an existential fight to the death for like the soul of the world. I don't know.
Against Christianity.
Yeah.
I mean, that was Charlie Kirk's murderer.
Truly.
It's that same space.
Exactly. It's that mindset.
It's demonic.
It is. And it's pervasive in society. I don't think we live in a post-Christian society, but everyone says it's secular, but I don't think it is. I think we live in a pagan society. We live in a society that sacrifices children, worships money, worships pleasure, is new age, is all about magic and astrology and all these other, I mean, we live in a pagan society right now. And I think that's why we're coming up against so much opposition. Whereas the secular society was more or less like, whatever, you guys are, you're dumb. You don't know what you're talking about, but enjoy. You know, the pagans are the ones who are like, no, I am in direct opposition to you. You don't want me to be this, so I don't want you to be that. And I mean, people disagree with me, but that's really how I feel. It's crazy. So I did that and I received all that stuff. And to this day, randomly, every week I get messages. Every week.
From people who hate you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you were mentioning, I mean, after Charlie's death last week, you were saying you got another outflow of hatred, and because you spoke out expressing your pain over Charlie's passing.
Yeah, I wasn't going to say anything. I mean, I'm a comedian and I commentate on like certain things. You've just like as a public person, you can't commentate on every single issue. And I was like, do I post about this? And then people were celebrating. Ugh. And I just felt the need.
How did you see them celebrating? On your feed? Was that
unfortunately on my feed, yeah.
Old people you used to know in New York?
A bunch of people I used to know, a bunch of people who I thought were good friends of mine, a bunch of people who I thought were normal. And then, you know, you'll just see a post with hundreds of comments. And then, there's easily hundreds of thousands of people celebrated.
And how were they celebrating? Did you observe?
Yeah, I mean, it's videos, jokes, you know, all the like good riddance, like rest in piss, like all that stuff. Just thousands of messages. People immediately, he was shot within hours. People were posting memes and jokes and images of him being killed.
Evil.
So evil. It's insane. And it affected me so much that I was like in the airport, like I just want to say, I just feel like I have to say something. So I made a video that was like, it couldn't have been more like moderate.
I saw that.
Yeah.
It was very moderate.
It was literally me being like, listen, you don't have to agree with him, but like, he's a father. I'm a father. I know, like, it's just so sad. And I was a little emotional. And of course, then people use that against me. Nothing's funnier than the like, oh, gender is a construct. Society is being a man isn't it toxic masculinity. And then I cry because a man was murdered in front of his child. And people are like, you're a wimp. You're pathetic. Cry more, Nazi. You know, like calling me names, making fun of me for being emotional. It's like, I thought you guys were the emotions are good, masculinity is fake people. So now you're like making fun of me. And then of course, people were telling me I was, because I didn't even say I supported him. I simply said I wanted people to do something good in honor of him and to just not be celebrating. And people were like, immediately tried to started messaging me like, which school does your daughter go to? And like, evil message.
So sorry.
People telling me they're gonna shoot up my shows, people telling me all kinds of crazy stuff, and then I had insane people like sending me messages and then unsending them and sending like it was crazy. And so now I have to have this security at my shows for the rest of the year. And of course I'm living in like what's going on. I'm a very recognizable person, so that's sketchy. And like
sunglasses don't really do the trick for you.
They don't when you get a sword on your face. That's my bad. But it's, yeah, I experienced like so much hate this week that it was so much personal vile. And not because I even was like, I didn't even say I agree with him or whatever, which I do agree with him. And people know that, but like, they were simply mad at me for just being like, I have compassion.
For grieving.
For grieving.
I mean, I think that's what's so crazy is you're not allowed to grieve Charlie's death.
And that's a real thing. You are not allowed. I've seen multiple people who are liberals that I'm friends with post like, oh, this is so sad, and then get attacked as a Nazi sympathizer, which is crazy.
Yeah. There's this woman, there's a bunch of them, but you know, from my childhood, and there were some people that got really radicalized later on, became super left-wing. They were kind of, because I was homeschooled, so I know a lot of these homeschool kids, some of them from really fundamentalist families. They had issues, trauma, so they ended up getting radicalized. And anyway, so I see a lot of their comments on Facebook. It's kind of an interesting kind of subgroup, you know, of people out there. But people that I can tell, like in their comment, they really pride themselves on their humanity. They really pride themselves on how fair they are, equitable, loving. They are the ones that are just really, tone checking people.
Yeah.
And they're out there saying, well, his words were violent. So, should it really be a surprise that he was gunned down? Like equating his speech, which was not, he never called for anyone to be, his message was never to harm people, innocent people, or bring about, pain on human beings. I mean, he had some, tongue in cheek way he would say things sometimes, but overall, especially in the more recent years, as he was more passionate about his faith, his message was so one of inviting people in.
Right.
But it kind of blew my mind that the very people that were professing their sort of liberalism, this loving liberalism, can't allow a shed of love, like a bit of love,
or
for
even
a father and a husband.
Yeah, it's insane. It's so evil that even if you were, and God forgive you, secretly happy it happened, you can't just hold that emotion and be a human being and say, hey, fathers shouldn't be murdered in front of their kids. Like you're so evil that you're like, no, I need to publicize this one. I need people to know how happy I am. Like you can't even be secretly happy that your enemy is gone. You know what like that to me is like that's like Joker level evil. It's irrationally evil. Like you're not even privately doing it. You're not even talking. You're celebrating as if it's great. And then it's funny too, because you say, oh, his speech was violent, so who could be surprised? Well, by celebrating his death, who could be surprised if something were to happen to you? Are we not going back and forth on this? Because that's why we have free speech. Because that's what happens. You kill someone for speech, and then you use your speech, and they go, well, I'm going to kill you over speech. And now we
all
live,
kill each other.
Yeah, we live in a horrible place. Like that's the whole idea of our country.
Well, I think about Mother Teresa's very prophetic words. And she said this when she got her Nobel Peace Prize, and people were very mad that she said this. But she said, in a nation where a mother can kill her own child, what is left but for me to kill you and for you to kill me?
Right. Yeah. That's very real. So, oh man.
So you're doing comedy now.
Mm-hmm.
You are speaking out, obviously, upon your faith, despite the attacks that you're getting. What do you feel called to?
Well, at first, when I first converted, I was like, I'm going to be a religious. This looks so appealing to me. And it is. I think that I'm born for it. I would do so well
as a monk.
I really would.
You probably would.
I'm like the discipline, the structure. Yeah. It appeals to me really a lot. But I fell in love, and God doesn't call us to the thing that's easiest for us. He calls us to the thing we're called to. And so I ended up falling in love.
Post-conversion,
and I fell in love with someone who was going through a reversion. So we became educated and grew our spiritual lives together up until our marriage. So I've had this incredibly beautiful relationship with my wife, who has like helped grow me spiritually and push me. And, all the gifts of the sacrament are just so incredible. And to learn to love, and for the first time in my life, like she's the first person that I've ever been like, wow, this is really hard. And then I stay.
Wow.
And that has been like paying dividends, and it's been so wonderful. And now I have this whole other family that is a part of my family, and we're like all together, and God's gifts are just like so incredible. So I feel called to grow this family as big as I can get it, and to just keep doing what I'm doing. But I think most importantly, I really just want to live out my life as a lay person in such a way that I can convict others. Like, I think it's cool that I have a public platform. I think it's cool that I'm a comedian, and I think it's beautiful to do things like this, and it's really helpful. But at the end of the day, if I lost my career, that's fine, right? Like I'll just work at a factory again, whatever. I just feel really called to grow my family and to love them correctly, and to basically, I think that the thing that is going to heal the country most, and this, whenever I talk about my conversion at a parish, this is the point I try to make, is that my conversion is the catalyst, the number one, the first thing that pointed me towards Christ was looking at my friends who were loving husbands.
Wow.
So when I was like, what's wrong with these people and what do I want to be like? And the people who I wanted to be like were just loving husbands. And my friends I cannot stress enough how stupid my friends are. We're just dumb rednecks, you know? But like my friend who works at the auto body shop and is obsessed with bass fishing, but just loves his wife.
Wow.
You know, and has kids and just quietly does his thing and plays Xbox and is just a good, kind father and a loving husband.
Wow.
Nothing crazy. Nothing, you know, he's not the most devout guy. But it doesn't matter. By observing someone being in that loving situation and showing me like what's possible, that pushed me towards Jesus. And now I'm in that situation. And I just feel like the most important, brave, and powerful thing a Catholic can do is to love and grow their family well and unapologetically so that others can see, you know? And so like the most important thing I feel like I can do, even outside of this evangelization or sharing, is for people to just witness that like these Catholic families are beautiful and loving and good, you know? I want kids who are struggling to have my same experience I had in my friend's room when his mom came in, you know? I just want people to, and I feel like that's how we move the ball forward. That's how we heal the country, is by all these lost, hurt people to over time be like, well, look at that. What am I doing? You know, I got to get involved in this. These people are happy and they're supportive and they're loved and they're fulfilled. And, you know, I love that. That's what I want. So
I love that.
Yeah.
That's the biggest witness. And that's the beauty of vocation. You're called to marriage. You're married to your beautiful wife. Loving her is your path to heaven and your path to help other people get there too.
And you think people aren't watching, you have no idea.
Yeah,
like, again,
true.
My dumb redneck friends don't think that
true.
I'm watching them thinking, you know, anything emotional or special. They think that their lives are par for the course, you know? But simply by just like not giving up on your wife and loving your children, I was like, dang, there is a better way.
Wow.
That looks way better. And that's the most powerful thing anyone can do. So marry someone and love them with all your heart and make babies.
And go to church.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Well, you can't get married if you're not going to church.
Yeah, go to church and then get married. Yeah. The best. Shayne, you're amazing. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
This has been amazing.
And I've been a huge fan of you for so long.
Oh,
and so is my wife.
That's so sweet.
Yeah,
thank you. You'll
You're
have
great.
to tell her hello for me.
I will.
Where can people find you online and your work?
People can find me. I have a website, ShayneSmithComedy.com. You can find my tour dates and stuff there. And I'm actually coming to San Diego to perform in December. So you should come down.
Okay. We'd love that.
And then, so I have shows, and then you can follow me on Instagram at Shay Dozer, SHAY.
Send him some love on IG.
Yeah,
with all
for
the
real.
hate you get. Oh my gosh.
I will say that I got like an incredible amount of hate, but I posted like basically being like, I'm not backing down. I doubled down.
Nice.
And the amount of support I got was wildly overwhelming.
Amazing.
So thank you to all the Christians who are witnesses, who have had my back, who have taken care of me. If you've ever sent me a nice message, know that even if I didn't respond, I saw it, and it was nice. It was good, and I needed it. So yeah. So Instagram, website, Shayne Smith, you can find me.
Amazing.
Google tattoo face comedian.
Thank you, Shayne.
Thank
you.
you.
Been awesome. A huge thank you to our partner, EWTN, the largest religious broadcaster in the entire world. EWTN is reaching millions of people every single day with the beautiful truth of the gospel. You can watch new episodes of The Lila Rose Show 24 hours before they hit podcast app over at EWTN.com/on-demand.